Happy New Year and happy new name, Sacred-by-Design, Interiors by Laureen Youngblood. That's me. So, welcome to 2024. We are going to start the new year with a series of videos around kitchen design basics. And I'm looking forward to sharing some of my insights into where to start when you're looking to do a kitchen design, whether it's a remodel or new construction. Things that we typically tend to forget about or leave to the last minute and then have to fit in. And run across that a number of times doing kitchen designs with clients. And so the first design process that we want to talk about is what we call a galley kitchen. And a galley kitchen comes from the concept of a small kitchen. It typically was found at one point or another in seafaring vessels. That's why it's called a galley. And it is basically your standard small apartment, small home kitchen, where the kitchen is lined up on two walls that are parallel to each other. There's no turns, there's no corners. And most often they run between 8 and 10 feet long. So very small, compact. Storage is typically a large issue. Most often, because they are in smaller homes, you're going to find that the ceilings are going to run between 7 and 8 feet, 8 feet if you're lucky. Most often, a lot of times, will be between 7 and 7.5 feet, depending on the year that the home was built. If you're doing new construction, obviously, you can make that as large as you want. So, most people have heard about the work triangle in kitchen designs. Yes, that is a thing. And no, it is not a law. So, that being said, in a galley kitchen, most often the work triangle is going to work itself. That is such a small space, and the way that appliances are placed, and if you don't know what the work triangle is, they want your sink, your refrigerator, and your stove to be in some kind of a triangle format. It doesn't require you to walk more than about 4 to 6 feet from one to the next. And that is supposedly to allow easier prep, cooking, and dishwashing, all of that for more convenient use of your kitchen, more functional use. And a galley is pretty much set for you. So what you will find in most galley kitchens is that the sink will be located under a window, and the window is in the middle of a wall on one side. And then on the other side, you will typically, not always, but typically find the stove and the refrigerator and then whatever cabinets fit in between or around them. Now, there are a couple of things that we want to remember when working in a galley kitchen. One, there's not a lot of room for movement. We're not going to talk about major remodels in a galley kitchen, although they can be possible. We're going to talk about using the space that you have. So, most often you're going to leave the sink centered underneath the window where it's at, which is great for cost. It keeps the cost down because you're not moving plumbing. Then the big decision is whether or not you put your dishwasher on the right-hand side or the left-hand side of your sink. Now that can be determined by the appliances on the other side, or it can be determined by where you want to unload your dishes from. Are you right-handed? Do you want to go from the sink into your dishwasher on the right? Are you left-handed? You want to go from the sink into your dishwasher on the left. Half a dozen one, 6 in the other. I've seen it both ways. It works both ways. That is entirely up to you. Where are the cabinets as you're unloading the dishwasher? Where are they going to be unloading into? Right or left or behind you? So those are things you want to kind of take into consideration. Now in a 8-foot wall, you have basically a 3-foot sink cabinet and then a 24-inch dishwasher. That gives you 5 feet already that's been taken up, and you only have 3 feet left. Most often, depending on how that window is centered in the kitchen, you're going to end up with 2 small cabinets to either side. If you're fortunate enough, maybe you can get a bigger one to one side or the other to allow for more storage space. We'll talk about drawer storage another time and maximizing storage space, although in galley kitchens, it's a really big deal. Just remember, if you can, design with drawers. It's more accessible. It allows more storage space than roll-out shelves, and it allows that you don't have to bend down, climb into your cabinets. It's definitely the way to go if you can push that cost into drawers, then definitely do it. So that's your sink wall. Then we turn around, and behind us is the refrigerator wall or stove wall. Now, what you will find is that the biggest challenge in Galley Kitchens is that, one, if you have two people in the kitchen, it's almost impossible to work. Two is that you can't open more than one appliance door at the same time, because they either bang into each other or they create a space where you can't get by. All of that is absolutely part of the process and reality of a small kitchen. So the one thing that I try to remember, that's one of my number one go-tos when designing a kitchen, is depending on where the main gathering space is in your home, I always like to default, if at all possible, to putting the refrigerator on the end of the kitchen that is closest to where the gathering is going to be, whether it's a dining room or a living room, whatever that is, so that, especially in small kitchens, when you're working, the other occupants in the house, in the space, don't have to enter your workspace to get to the refrigerator for snacks and drinks. It's a super easy convenience, especially if you have kids, as kids like to be in and out, in and out, in and out all the time. So putting the refrigerator at the end where it's easily accessible is a really great use of the space, in my opinion. Now, I have had people that don't want that end of the kitchen to be blocked off with the refrigerator. I completely understand that. One way to make it look nice is to put a nice small 3/4 inch cabinet panel on that end of the refrigerator. Gives it a custom built-in look, and it blocks like the standard, we put everything on the side of our refrigerator with magnets and papers and stuff. So it can make it like cleaner looking. The other thing too is one of those places where you might want to put a little extra finance in is doing what they call a counter depth refrigerator. So instead of sticking out 36 or so inches with the handles and everything into your kitchen, you can get a counter depth refrigerator, and then the only thing that sits proud of your countertops or your counter space or your cabinets is just the door. So then you're only a couple of inches into the space with the doors. It will also help that space feel wider and more open, which is a great tool to use. Now, where it comes to the range, most often you're in a galley kitchen going to center the range somewhere between the refrigerator at one end and the other end of the refrigerator, at the other end of the kitchen, excuse me. So that's pretty typical. Now, when it comes to that, if you have the ability, venting is something that you want to take into account. If you have a vented range, sometimes you will run into in galley kitchens where there is no venting. It's a recirculating fan or vent or microwave hood, which is another great space saving, especially in a galley kitchen, is to do a microwave hood with a recirculating. Not a big fan of microwave hoods, except in certain circumstances. This would be one of those. And so venting, no venting, if you have the ability to move it, great. So one thing that you might want to think about is maybe it doesn't get centered. So you have your sink and dishwasher on the other side. Do you want the range right across from the dishwasher? No, not necessarily. Especially if you're going to try and fit two people into the kitchen working at the same time. If somebody wants to be cooking, putting things in the oven, and the other person is trying to do dishes or prep or whatever, one of the ways that you can do that is just offset those appliances enough that the doors don't meet. And that means maybe your range isn't centered on the wall on the stove wall. Maybe it's pushed down further to one end versus the other. Now, that will also allow a larger countertop space, say between the refrigerator and the range. Or maybe a smaller space between the refrigerator and range and a larger space to the other side. It gives you a little more workspace. Instead of two small cabinets, you get one that's, larger, workable, and one that's smaller. Two things to remember in this. Do not put your range up against a wall. Please don't do that. Even if you just put in a 9 or a 12-inch cabinet between the range and the wall, please do that. It will make all the difference in cleanup, usability, and how the space feels when you're using it. You don't want to be bumping your elbows or trying to figure out pot handles up against a wall in a kitchen. Please don't do that. Second, you don't want the range right up against the refrigerator. Again, it just creates an awkward space. You're worried about handles, the heat versus the cold. It's a bad combination, just all the way around. So if nothing else, please try to make sure that you get that little bit of space. That might also, if you have a long enough wall, be a great opportunity for a little 12-inch tall pantry, one of those pull-outs, or just one that has adjustable shelves that you can store more food, because storage is a thing in a galley kitchen. The last but not least, and almost always gets forgotten in a kitchen, is the trash. In most galley kitchens, unless you're fortunate enough to have one that's extra long, 10 or 11 feet, that's great. But in most galley kitchens, you're trying to maximize your storage space. So please don't forget trash. Please plan for the fact that you're probably going to end up with a small trash can underneath your sink. A rollout shelf in your sink underneath your sink is a great way to maximize the usability of that space, and it gives you a place to put a little trash can. You can roll it out. It's easy to clean. It's easy to put all your cleaning products in there. You don't have to bend down, get into the cabinet, all that kind of stuff. So hopefully, I talk really fast today. I was trying to get it in. This is an extra long video, so I appreciate you sticking with me through it. Happy New Year again. Welcome to 2024. And I hope this was helpful in any of your thought processes around redesigning galley kitchens. Have a great day.